Welcome, young Skywalker. Everything that has transpired has done so according to my design.
Maybe you just picked up the GM screen for the first time. Or perhaps you've been running games for years but always feel like something's missing or that your games just suck. You find yourself forgetting NPCs and contradicting yourself between sessions, and your worlds don't feel consistent and your players are starting to notice. Well, don't worry. In this video you're about to learn 10 plus years of GMing secrets that separate struggling GMs from confident ones. Being a GM means you're more than just a storyteller. You have to wear all these different hats: database admin, keeping track of every NPC and location, narrative architect, building the world. You're the procedural judge making rulings on the fly. And when you first sit behind that screen, you might not realize it yet, but you need systems to handle all of that, or you're gonna lose your mind. This video isn't about turning you into some obsessive secretary who can't enjoy the game anymore. It's about giving yourself a safety net so you can focus on the actual fun stuff instead of panicking about whether you've already named that tavern or not. Because when you've actually got solid organization, that's when player choices can actually matter. So we're breaking this down into 3 phases: pre-session, in-session, and post-session. Plus we'll cover tools for keeping your world bible from becoming a complete mess. First thing I want to say is, stop writing plots. Seriously. The moment you decide, here's how this session is going to go, you've already lost, because your players are going to do something completely sideways. You're going to be sitting there frustrated because they've ruined your beautiful story by, I don't know, befriending the villain or burning down the tavern you spent 2 hours detailing. What you want to prep instead are scenarios or situations. You're building actors, locations, and motivations that are in tension with each other, and then you let your players knock it all over however they want. Think of yourself as setting up dominoes, not writing a screenplay. I'm a big advocate of what people call the lazy DM mindset, which sounds bad, but it's actually brilliant. It's essentialism for game masters: prepare the minimum necessary to achieve the maximum fun. But look, you have a life, right? A job, a family, other hobbies, all that stuff. If you're spending 10 hours prepping for a 4-hour session that your players will derail in the first 20 minutes anyways, you're gonna burn out hard. I've seen it happen to some of my friends who are GMs, and it's happened to me. So the golden rule I stand by now is I only prepare what I'm not comfortable making up on the spot. So if you're great at improvising NPC personalities but you suck at balancing combat encounters, then spend your prep time on the stat blocks, not the characters. If you can run tactical combat in your sleep, but you freeze up when you need to name someone, prep the names. Play to your weaknesses, not to your strengths. The thing that I've learned the most from GMing this way is that I wasn't great with improvising when I first started. I wanted to write every single detail down, and I wanted to have every option mapped out, which for one is very railroady, but also it means that I can't grow on my improv. The less prep I put in for the story, the better at improvising I got. I feel like most GMs could probably write a novel, but the skill you have to learn is, instead of writing it down on paper, is translating that into quick thinking in your head whilst you're playing. So think of your notes as a toolbox. You're not trying to predict what your players will do, because that's impossible and will drive you crazy. Instead, you're preparing tools you can deploy regardless of their choices, such as a list of NPCs who could show up, or interesting locations they might visit, complications that could arise, or items they might find. These are modular pieces you can drop in wherever makes sense, based on what actually happens. The goal is maximum flexibility. When your players do something completely unexpected, like deciding to investigate a throwaway comment you made about smugglers 3 sessions ago, you want to be able to grab pieces from your prep and assemble something that feels planned even though you're totally improvising. It genuinely makes you look like a genius when you're really just organizing enough to roll with whatever chaos your players throw at you. Alright, so it's game day. Before your players show up, you need a ritual. Mine tends to take about 30 to 40 minutes, and it's usually the difference between a session that goes smoothly or becomes a complete disaster. The first thing I do is review the player characters. Not their stats or anything like that, but who they actually are, what their goals are right now, and what abilities they just unlocked at their last level up. Your players are telegraphing what they want through their character choices, and if you're paying attention, you can give them chances to use that new stuff in satisfying ways. Next, plan your strong start, or purposeful start, whatever you feel like calling it. You don't want to start your session with everyone stumbling into existence, saying, what's going on? What were we doing again? Based on the last session's cliffhanger, or what the party already agreed they wanted to do, you can narrate them directly into motion. You wake at dawn and there's smoke smoke rising from the temple district. That's all it takes to point your players in a direction you want them to go, or where they said they wanted to go. I think this is one of my favorite techniques, secrets and clues. You prepare about 10 bits of information, lore, plot hooks, secrets about NPCs, whatever, but you don't attach them to anything specific. They're just floating around in your notes, and then during play, when your players decide to search the library or interrogate someone, or talk to that random merchant, you drop one of these secrets there. It makes your world feel incredibly responsive because they're discovering stuff through their own choices instead of you leading them by the nose to specific locations. And for pacing, keep a hiccup list. These are minor obstacles you can throw in if things are moving too fast, or if you need to end on a cliffhanger, a stuck door, or a wandering patrol, or a weird omen. Just little speed bumps that give you time to think when your players surprise you. I also do a limelight check. Does every player have at least one moment designed for their character this session? The rogue should get to do rogue things. The face character should get a social encounter. The cleric's deity should feel relevant somehow. You don't have to force it or anything like that, but having those opportunities ready means nobody spends the whole session feeling useless. The last thing on this, and this is your insurance policy, is the parachute file. Keep a folder of generic one-shots or 5-room dungeons that aren't connected to your campaign at all. When your players inevitably go completely off map and you have zero prep for where they're headed, you can grab one of these and just drop it in. As you're traveling, you spot ruins ahead. Now you've got 2 hours of content while you figure out what to prep for next time. This has saved my ass more times than I can count. And all of this pre-session work should give you options, not lock you into outcomes. You're building a foundation that lets you improvise effectively instead of panicking when things go sideways. Because come on, things will go sideways. That's the whole point of this game. The worst thing you can do is over-prep the wrong stuff. Don't write 3 pages of dialogue for an NPC your players might never talk to, and there's no point detailing every room in a dungeon they might skip entirely. Prep the skeleton, the framework, the tools. The actual meat of the session happens at the table when your players start to make decisions. And after a couple sessions like this, you'll be surprised how easily you can come up with details for dungeon rooms or NPCs. Okay, so now you're actually running the game. You're tracking initiative, role-playing NPCs, making rulings, and trying to write everything down that's important. It's not easy, man. Here's how I do it. First thing I do is I standardized shorthand. You can't write full sentences during combat. It's physically impossible. Use abbreviations, AC, DC, HP, AoE, all the standard stuff everyone knows. When you improvise an NPC's name on the spot, write the first letter and fix it later. During fights, I literally just write Orc 1 hurt, Orc 2 dead, Orc 3 ran. That's it. I'll clean it up after the session. And here's something I use constantly, and a bunch of systems do this really well. You see it in clocks in Blades in the Dark, fronts in Apocalypse World, or countdowns in Daggerheart. I pick an abstract thing I want to track, like town alert level or crowd favor or political tension, whatever you want, and I give it a visible scale. It could be 1 to 6, maybe 1 to 10. Then when the players do something that would logically affect it, the number moves. And when it hits certain thresholds, something changes in the world. Maybe the guards are getting suspicious, and it stops being a vague vibe and becomes alert level 6. And at 8, they start active patrols, and at 10 they lock down the city. Advancing a clock makes the world feel consistent, and it makes escalation predictable without being safe. And most importantly, it makes consequences feel earned instead of arbitrary. I use those 30-second gaps when your players are role-playing with each other or debating their next move, and they don't actually need you, to start scribbling down some names you've improvised, update your combat tracker, or figure out what the villain is actually trying to do. I don't interrupt their character moments just to keep things moving. I let them play out and then use that breathing room to catch up. And you should leverage your players. You're not their secretary. Stop trying to remember everything yourself. Appoint someone the loot master who tracks treasure, designate a scribe who takes notes from the player's perspective, and to sweeten the pot, offer them in-game rewards for this, like inspiration, or advantage on something next session. Make it worth their while, and it works great. It takes the pressure off of you, and the notes the players take reveals what they actually care about, which is incredibly valuable information. If you're really overwhelmed, record the session. I know some people think this is weird, and yes, you need everyone's permission first, but you can listen back to it at double speed later, or run it through an AI transcription to find specific notes or names. If recording means you're less stressed and more present during the actual game, it's definitely worth it. Physical shortcuts help too. If you're using minis, grab yellow or white grease pencils. You can write status effects or numbers directly on the base, poisoned or 3, and wipe it off with your finger when you're done. It's way faster than tracking everything on paper or trying to remember which enemy has disadvantage on attacks. And one more thing, your in-session notes are gonna be messy. That's completely fine. information. They're not supposed to be pretty or anything. They don't have to make sense to anyone else. They just need to capture enough information that you can reconstruct what happened later when you're doing cleanup. I've got session notes that look like a serial killer's manifesto. Words, arrows, question marks, scribbles everywhere. It really doesn't matter. As long as I know what it means in the post-session phase, it's done its job. The goal during your session isn't perfect documentation. It's staying present with your players and keeping the game moving. What you're trying to capture is the bones of what's happening, so you can flesh it out later when you have time to actually think. Don't stress about making it neat in the moment. You've got other things to focus on, like that player who just declared they're punching the king. Now your session's over, everyone's packing up dice and you're exhausted. This is the part that most GMs skip, I think, and it's why they end up with massive continuity problems 3 months later. The post-session synthesis. I know you're tired, but do it anyway. Don't wait. I try to spend 15 minutes right after everyone leaves, even if my brain's fried. I just do a brain dump while it's fresh. If I absolutely can't, I do it the next morning with a coffee, but past 24 hours I start forgetting names and mixing up who said what, and then I'm in trouble. So what I do is I open up my campaign document and I just write everything I can remember that mattered. Who they met, what decisions they made, which plot threads they picked up or completely ignored. And I'm not writing a novel, just bullet points, getting stuff out of my head into permanent storage. And then I update the campaign bible. Every NPC I improvised gets added to the master list. Every location they visited gets a proper entry. Every item they found goes into the loot log. This makes them canon, and now they're officially part of the world. And I can't contradict myself about them later without breaking consistency. I also write a recap, just half a page of summarizing what happened. And sometimes I read this at the start of next session to get everyone back into the headspace. But a lot of the time, I let them do the recap, and then I refer back to mine in case they forget anything. It saves you quite a lot of work, and it shows you what they actually remember and care about. Sometimes you discover they completely misunderstood something important, which is information you desperately need. This is also when I check my countdowns and clocks. If there's a villain working on a scheme, their timeline advances, or if a faction are doing things off screen, I move their plans forward. And when it hits 0, the event triggers. The synthesis phase transforms your messy in-session scribbles into usable information, and it really does make your campaign feel coherent, and you're not constantly contradicting yourself or going, wait, did we already resolve that? Who is this person? It's not exciting work, but it is necessary. Now let's talk about tools. There's so many options for organizing campaign notes, and people get really opinionated about this, but honestly, the best system is the one that you actually use consistently. For digital tools, you've got some heavy hitters like Obsidian, which is fantastic if you like the idea of notes that link to each other wiki style, and everything stays local on your computer. Notion and OneNote are more traditional but powerful if you like database and folder hierarchies. Then you've also got specialized tools built for GMs. Legend Keeper and World Anvil come with features like interactive maps, lore templates, timelines, all that stuff. They're excellent if you want something designed specifically for this. But don't get me wrong, analog works too. A 3-ring binder, some index cards, they have 0 learning curve and 0 lag time, and keep you focused on the humans at your table instead of staring at a laptop screen. I know loads of great GMs who run entirely on paper notes and their campaigns are just as coherent as anyone using fancy software. Don't let anyone shame you for preferring physical notes. And if you're halfway through a campaign, don't try and put everything onto a new system. It's too much. Stick with what's working for you right now. Organize it better, but don't feel the need to change what you're using to be more organized. Wait until your campaign ends or you start a new arc, and then transfer over to a new software if you want to. Whatever system you pick, keep the structure simple. Use one campaign folder, inside a page for player characters, a section for NPCs. I split mine into active and past, so I'm not scrolling through dead characters. A folder for maps and locations, that's basically it. You don't have to overcomplicate it. I also keep what I call a junk drawer, a campaign support folder for random stuff that doesn't fit cleanly anywhere else. Calendars, pantheons, factions, relationships, house rules, whatever. But try and keep it lean. If you've got 30 pages on deity lore that never come up in actual play, you're wasting your time maintaining it. The main point for me is findability. When you're at the table and you need to remember something, you should be able to locate it in under 30 seconds. If your organization system is so elaborate that you're spending 2 minutes hunting through nested folders for basic information, it's not really helping you. Simpler is always better. better. They don't need to be impressive or comprehensive or pretty, they just need to help you run a consistent game. Now let's talk about making your world feel like it's still moving when the players aren't there. This is where organization becomes really powerful. Faction interaction matrices sounds fancy, but they're just charts tracking how different groups feel about each other and the party. When the party helps the city guard, the Thieves Guild gets more hostile, and when they broke a peace between two factions, both groups become friendlier. You don't need complex math, just arrows or simple notes showing relationships. Give major NPCs their own timelines, like what they're doing if the party doesn't interfere. The villain isn't just sitting around waiting for the heroes to show up, they're recruiting, researching, making alliances. Write their plan down with rough time frames. If the party doesn't stop phase 2, phase 3 happens automatically. This really does make the world feel like it's moving forwards whether the players act or not, and it raises stakes in a way nothing else does. When you're organizing location notes, use hierarchy or reference. Describe what's immediately obvious at first, the big threats, the important features, then layer in details as players investigate deeper. Your hidden stuff comes after, and then secrets that require specific checks come last. This makes your notes more scannable at the table instead of walls of text you're hunting through while everyone waits. Living handouts are also crucial. If you give the player a physical letter or a map or clue, keep the text in your notes. There's nothing more embarrassing than forgetting what was in the dramatic secret message you handed out 3 sessions ago. All of these techniques create depth without requiring you to prep every detail of your world. What you're doing is establishing systems that make your world respond logically to players' actions. So if you're going to take anything away from this video, let it be that the notes are for you. Nobody else sees them. They don't need to be beautiful or comprehensive or professional quality, unless that's your specific hobby and you enjoy it. The only standard they need to meet is helpful to you at the table. And don't beat yourself up about this. If your players are having fun, you haven't failed, even if your notes are a complete mess. Some of my best sessions I made no notes, barely any prep, and I've had terrible sessions where I planned meticulously. It doesn't work the way you think. What actually matters is that your world is consistent enough that player choices have weight, you're not constantly contradicting yourself or forgetting major events. And beyond that, everything else is bonus features. So my advice is to start small. Don't walk away thinking I'm telling you to implement everything in this video at once. You'll just overwhelm yourself. Pick one thing, maybe the secrets and clues list, or delegating recaps to players, or just doing the 15-minute brain dump after sessions. Try it for a few games. If it helps, keep it. If it doesn't, drop it and try something else. I won't be offended. Your systems are going to evolve as you figure out what works for your brain and your table, and that's how it should be. So go forth, lava gremlins, and take some notes. May your campaign bible actually be readable 6 months from now when you finally remember that blacksmith's name. Let me know in the comments how you prep for your games, or how you take notes, or what organization systems you have. If you're a player, do you think your GM could use any of these tips? Do you do recaps yourselves, or does your GM do it? Thank you for watching, and as always, stay spicy, adventurers.